थैंक यू सो
अब बहुत एफर्ट है आप लोगों की। आई एम मैं तो बहुत उसको क्लोजली आपके मैं देख रही होती हूँ, कोऑर्डिनेटेड होती हूँ। इंशाल्लाह वी आर होपिंग दैट इट विल बी अ बिग सक्सेस। इंशाल्लाह इंशाल्लाह आपके जो भी हार्ड एफर्ट इट विल बी पेड ऑफ।
मच।
राफिया, ये बैकग्राउंड मोबाइल से कैसे आएगा? बिकॉज आई एम नॉट कनेक्टेड विद माय लैपटॉप।
राकिया मोबाइल से नहीं आता, मोबाइल
हाँ,
से
यही मैं
आप खुद ही आएंगे। इट्स ओके, नो नो इश्यूज।
I was looking to all the settings and everything और वो
No,
नहीं
no,
आ रहा था।
I tried all that. The phone Zoom does not support virtual background.
हाँ, ओके ओके, ठीक है।
Assalamu alaikum everyone.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
Walaikum assalam.
Walaikum assalam. On behalf of TDC,
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم طاسيم تلك آيات الكتاب المبين وهو الله لا إله إلا هو له الحمد في الأولى والآخرة وله الحكم وإليه ترجعون قل أرأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم الليل سرمدا إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بضياء أفلا تسمعون قل أرأيتم إن جعل يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بضياء أفلا تسمعون قل أرأيتم إن جعل الله عليكم النهار سرمدا إلى يوم القيامة من إله غير الله يأتيكم بليل تسكنون فيه أفلا تبصرون ومن رحمته جعل لكم الليل والنهار لتسكنوا فيه ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. On behalf of TDC and Nurul Huda Education, I would like to welcome you all to the conference Schools That Learn. I will now hand over the mic to Ms. Rafia Mudassir to officially begin the conference.
Assalamu alaikum everyone and a very good morning. Welcome to the conference. I hope all of you have checked in on the Facebook page on the event so that everyone knows that you are participating. So a little introduction to the conference, Schools That Learn. I think you all must know that Schools That Learn by Peter Singh came out in 2000. The second edition in 2012 offered a new vision of the school as a center of service to the community. We think this idea of Peter Singh has become sharply relevant due to the pandemic. It is sad to know that it took a medical emergency of a global scale for us to see the gross disparity in social, educational, and economic capital. We have hosted a school leadership conference in the year 2010, myself and Abbas. We explored a serious question. What sorts of teaching learning practices do we have in our schools now? From that small list, what should we stop doing in the next decade? What should we continue doing and as technology enables us to serve our children better? And finally, what should we initiate as of January 1st, 2011? And now we are at the end of 2020. 10 years later, we have another chance, and the pandemic with its planetary reset has offered us a global crisis, which is too good an opportunity to waste. We believe that reimagining the grammar of schooling must happen. We believe, like Ken Robinson, that creative schools are possible and that we can avoid the death valley of schools. We must resist the soul-eroding 7 lessons of schooling described by John Taylor Gatto and create schools as community centers dedicated to learning. In short, we must move from schools that teach to schools that learn. In short, we must move from schools that teach to schools that learn. Keeping in view the growing crisis, we have organized the conference of the decade entitled Schools That Learn, which is happening today and tomorrow. Our vision of the outcome of the conference is school heads are finding themselves more stressed as there is more pressure on schools to deliver not just education, but also what we expected the home to provide, moral and ethical values. Further, technology has made students of today 2 steps ahead of the staff. Leadership in today's turbulent age, especially schools, need a drastic change. So the critical questions are, what unique solution did you arrive at to solve an issue raised by the pandemic? What will our schools need tomorrow? How do we meet the challenge of change? And most importantly, how can we be satisfied that we have prepared the students of our nation for their future? And I now introduce our first keynote speaker, none other than Abbas Husain Saab. Abbas Husain Saab is Director, Teachers Development Center, Karachi. He has received his education and training from the universities of Karachi, Manchester, Toronto, Pittsburgh, Louisville, and Chicago. His vast reading and travel throughout Pakistan has given him a unique insight into the paradoxes, anomalies, and contradictions in the education system of Pakistan. After over 85,000 teachers reached countrywide with special training programs for school leaders, Abbas Husain can claim some clarity about the issues they face, if not the solutions. So we present Abbas Husain as the keynote speaker, and he will be speaking about norms in the new normal. Thank you.
अच्छा, शेयर स्क्रीन में प्लीज मेरा पावर पॉइंट ले लीजिए. No, it is on my screen. Can you share screen now? If I share screen, or just a moment, people. Right, is it visible now? Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much for this regard and this seeking norms in the new norm. I would like to share with you 7 unrelated thoughts and ideas that I have been grappling with in these days of surprise and misadventure. No comment. It is very easy to say various things, but the first idea. Our theme for today is COVID-19 a problem and distance learning a solution, or is COVID-19 a solution? The first idea is that COVID-19 is a solution. To what? To time. And I will be coming to this point several times. To time, it gave us all extra time to look at what we choose not to see. It took away our fond excuses of being too busy. Ye occupational hazard hai. We did not pause and take stock. Were we really teaching the children? In small spoonfuls of lessons from the platterfuls of knowledge that we had collected over a span of some years at university? Really? Were we really teaching the children? We pitied the children who are not in school. True, we still do that. And yet we gaily failed children for a whole year for the sake of something learnable in a few weeks more. Consider this incredible horror that if a child did not know something on a particular day in May, We took away his life for a year, when had he only waited till July, he would have got it. But the schools have very onerous rules, and these are serious problems. We were so busy all the time, controlling, disciplining, punishing for infringement of school norms, uniforms, behavior, language, copies, spellings. All the adults were silent at the high-handedness of one of us. It's sad, isn't it? The child had almost no rights. We knew in the school that there was one teacher or two teachers who were not fair. We knew, and all adults, we just kept quiet because along came the pandemic and exposed the unthinkable fact. Those who were most responsible for teaching were themselves so inept at learning. Kamal hai na? We who wanted everyone to learn from us, ourselves were so terrible at learning. I find this incredible, that a conversation that was permissible in the month of March is still happening in the month of December. I find it incredible, but it is so. Yes, it is true that there has been more change in 10 years than there has been in the last 100 years. It is true that the scale of change has been immense. Yes, we know this. But how many centuries will it take to change this? Watch. Here is an image, very famous image. This is the University of Bologna. This is the University of Bologna, 1340. This is the lecturer, the man seated at the left up on a rostrum. And there are these people. Some have books, many others don't. One guy is asleep. Others are perhaps gossiping, listening, talking. Yeah, sounds familiar, right? This is 1340. And this is today. Now, something must be said about this. Somebody must say something. Okay, what the heck? What the heck? What are we doing? Or rather, what are we not doing? And why are we not doing it? And so a teacher who stops the students from laptops in class, I'm not even mentioning the calculators and the other things that we've had prior to today, should remember that goose feathers on parchment, writing notes, also distracted the students in 1340s. I mean, zara sa gaur to kare. चमड़े के ऊपर, parchment के ऊपर लिखने के अंदर में goose feathers की आवाज होती थी थोड़ी सी, एक सराहट सी होती थी. वो डिस्टर्ब करती थी लेक्चरर को, जो कहते थे डोंट इंटरप्ट मी नाउ, जस्ट लिसन. ओके, तो उस जमाने में वो था और इस जमाने में ये है. दोनों तरफ से सवाल यही है, who is doing the learning and who is doing the teaching? That. So my 7 thoughts. Aiye ji, turn by turn. 1. Children belong to parents. Children belong to parents. There can be no outsourcing of parental care of toddlers and infants. Now, हमें लगता है कि ये कोई कहने की बात है, तो ऐसा लगता है जी हाँ, ये कहने की बात है. Just as we as parents are responsible for their existence and their food and their health and their care and the precautions that we can take, normally take, not everything, we shall talk about that. We can't turn everything over to others to take care of them. We can't. So point number 1, children belong to parents. And in our panel discussion, we'll be picking this up, but let that happen when it happens. The present pandemic has made it clear work from home was actually work for home, for fathers too. Work from home was actually work for home. जरा जुमले पर लुत्फ ले आप जरा कि ये सारी मेहनत, ये सारी नौकरियां, ये सारा आना जाना, ये कम्यूट, ये कमाई, ये पैसा, ये सब एक बहाना है ना कि मैं अपने घर की खातिर कर रहा हूं। तो अब जब आप घर में हैं, तो घर के हैं या घर की खातिर हैं? What? Yani, why isn't taking care of the little ones, the toddlers, also part of the father's share if he is also in the home? Why isn't washing dishes, helping the mother do things, why isn't that a share equal from everything else? The present pandemic has made it clear. एक deep insight है इसके ऊपर जो कि मैं समझता हूँ as our starting point for today's and the whole conference itself. The physical presence of teachers and schools is a non-negotiable institution of society. Friends, no, we must have teachers and we must have schools. Beyond the toddlers and infants, we must, if parents need to work and if we need to get on with our lives and earning, then children must be taken care of. Children must go to school and worthy teachers must take care of the children for those hours. Otherwise, there will be much more disruption than there needs to be. Right. That was the second thought. Do not think that Khan Academy or YouTube or Google will take care of schools and that we can avoid them. And I know there is an argument for homeschooling, but I also know that the argument of homeschooling is actually an argument in favor of childhood and parenthood rather than an argument against schools. It's a deeper argument, not my today the occasion to go into it, but I have opened up the subject to give you things to think about. Okay. 3, the issue of access to internet and technology is an infrastructure issue, not education. I find it amazing that we wring our hands, we moan and groan and scream and yowl about how access is an issue. Of course it's an issue. Of course it's a problem. But is it an educational problem? There lies the problem. Is it an educational problem? No, it is not. It has to do with the telecom tower. It has to do with the way in which electricity works. It has to do with, so like other things, it's an issue of infrastructure. It is not an issue of education. So my favorite metaphor, I've been saying this in very many of my talks, that if you need to teach swimming to people and the people don't have water in the swimming pool, the issue is not swimming. The issue is getting the water. So, okay, get it. But it is not my problem as a teacher of swimming to worry about that. You worry about it, get it, and solve that problem. 4, many parents are obsessed with curriculums, textbooks, copies, exams, and grades as the only signs of learning. No, that's not true. These are not the only signs of learning. I would request all the people who are listening to please use the chat to put questions and other things that will be part of our ongoing conversation, and we will be able to respond to people and my colleagues will be able to respond to them as we move on. So as this keynote goes on and the others are speaking, your question and answer chunk will also emerge later in the program as we have planned it. Thank you. Okay, we move on. We think that textbooks and copies are the real thing, and that if children are in at home, what will happen? What will happen to the exam? But no, friends, that's not the only sign of learning. a big subject right there. 5. Technology can enrich good teaching, but cannot replace bad teaching. I marvel at the ideas in many of our leadership conferences, in school leaders, that they think that technology can replace teachers. No, it cannot. This thought is an extremely powerful thought. Technology can enrich good teaching, but cannot replace bad teaching. So the question before leaders and heads is very, very simple. The question is, why do you permit bad teaching to perpetuate? Which means, how can you have a culture in your classroom, in your school, where the good teachers' practices, norms, ideas, behaviors spill over onto the bad teacher? When will you be able to have that kind of conversation in the school? There lies, that's a whole leadership workshop right there in that one sentence. That was 5. 6. Infobesity is a condition, even as media addiction is real. Infobesity is a real word. Infobesity, a wonderful word, infobesity. Just as obesity is a condition, medical condition, there is information overload. Information overload. Now, I believe that this is serious. I believe it's a condition. और अभी की गुफ्तगू के लिए जितना वक्त है, we have a whole session dedicated to technology coming up. Infobesity is a word I would like everyone to make it as part of your conversation. और आप खुद मुझे बताएं, if somebody has obesity as a problem, what is the first thing that the doctor will tell that person? To go on a diet. कम खाओ कुछ खाने को ठीक करो अपना ओबेसिटी का. तो एग्जैक्टली इन द सेम वे अगर ओबेसिटी इन्फोबेसिटी है तो क्या करना चाहिए? cut down the darn media diet, put off the TV, stop watching each and every news channel and 17 repeats of the same news. And media addiction is real. Yes, addiction is simply when you are compelled to do a behavior even when you know better things are to be done. Addiction is this: when I keep indulging in a behavior even when I know there are better things I need to do. This is media addiction. And yes, doom scrolling, the endless scrolling of Facebook feeds and other things is something which is extremely serious, something to look after. I'm not much worried about the others. I'm worried about ourselves. जो लोग कहते हैं हाँ जी वो बच्चे बहुत मीडिया एडिक्शन में, ट्रू, लेकिन अगर हम लोग भी अपने ऊपर जरा नजर डालें तो that would also work. We need to look at that. Finally, the ethics of emergencies. I think this is an extremely serious thought for today, and I hope I have found this useful. I hope you also find it useful. The ethics of emergencies demand from us a different mode of conduct. You see, let me be clear. I consider the pandemic to be a medical crisis and therefore apply the ethics of emergencies to all the thinking about the norms we are seeking. Ethics of normal life have different norms. For example, my behavior in a burning house is dictated by ethics of emergencies. You can imagine, if my house is on fire, I'll behave in an extremely impulsive and maybe not very rational ways. It is bizarre if I behave like that all the time, expecting the house to be on fire all the time. I mean, that's terrible. No, my behavior would be, normally I would try to prevent the fire in the first place by taking sensible precautions. So in normal life, I behave in a particular way in my house, which is dictated by the demands of living as an intelligent being. But in ethics, in emergencies, I would behave impulsively. I would run after the things that were precious to me, and it would not be very sensible, I understand. This is the pandemic. This is dictated by ethics of emergency. Gee, an emergency. आइए जरा definition की भी बात clear कर लें. What is an emergency? An emergency is an unchosen, unexpected event. None of us said about COVID-19, let's have it. None of the teachers, none of the heads, none of the society, none of the cultures, none of the countries said, let's have COVID-19. No, nobody said that. It is an unchosen, unexpected event, limited in time. I'm going to come to this. ये मेरा आज का खास लफ्ज है जिस पर हम आते हैं. That creates conditions under which human survival is impossible, such as a flood, an earthquake, a fire, a pandemic. Limited in time. ये खास लफ्ज है जिसके ऊपर मुझे लगता है कि कुछ लोग थोड़े से परेशान होते हैं कि ये कैसे. But I'm going to talk about this. Bas, I'm concluding. In an emergency situation, humanity's primary goal is to combat the disaster, escape the danger, and restore normal conditions. To reach dry land, to put out the fire, etc. By its nature, an emergency situation is temporary. And many people listening would say, as I'm now just going to share with you, if it were to last, humanity would perish. Please do not despair if the end of this crisis is not in sight. Many people say, but it has been 10 months or more. When will it end? And I respond, true, it may last longer, but still it is temporary. Yani, ye contradiction hai. Just another very simple example, not too long ago. The Second World War lasted from 1939 to 1945. And no one argued about the missed algebra classes during those years. It was the war. So friends, if mankind can take that kind of crisis and emerge out of it, we will emerge out of this as well. And so I come to a conclusion. This COVID-19 situation will pass. With our own immunity raised or by vaccines, it will pass. And we have a great moral choice before us. Shall we implement the old, abnormal, unjust system because we lack the imagination to visualize and conceive something better, ways to love our children better? This then is the gift of the pandemic. It has released time to look at possibilities in a way we could never have planned. The global reset, a word Rafia Mudassir Sahiba used just now in the introduction. The global reset has allowed us the kind of space as a planet to rethink of the possibilities which we never could before. I cannot resist making a deep point about time. The last quotation. Technology has reduced time in many ways, and a saying from the Prophet, upon whom be peace, resonates with us today. It is so spot on that one marvels at his acumen. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, near the last days, आइए आसार क़यामत की अहादीस में एक अजीब व गरीब जुमला. And I believe, not since it is not something that one commonly gets to read, it is my honor and privilege to share this incredible nugget of wisdom and conclude my talk for you. A sign of the approaching end will be when a day is as a year, a day as a month, a day as a week, a day as an hour, a day as a moment. Wallah. यानी मौला ने करार दिया कि एक वक्त आएगा आसार क़यामत में जब एक दिन बराबर होगा एक साल के, एक दिन बराबर होगा एक महीने के, एक दिन बराबर होगा एक हफ्ते के, एक दिन बराबर होगा एक घंटे के, एक दिन बराबर होगा एक लम्हे के. आज एक ब्लेसिंग है कि हमारे सामने ये तमाम मिसालें रियल, We know this. We are blessed to have lived at a time when all these possibilities are parts of our experience. कमाल है ना, हम एक ऐसे दौर में जिंदा हैं जहां ये जुमले की सच्चाई हम सब की नजरों के सामने है। सालों का सफर था मलेशिया से हज तक, आज एक हवाई जहाज की फ्लाइट। महीनों का सफर था, देखिए महीने लगते थे एक किताब की हाथ से कॉपी करने में, आज फोटोस्टैट पर एक आधे घंटे में वो हो जाती, एक दिन में वो हो गया। यानी एक हफ्ता लगता था एक डॉक्यूमेंट को अगले डॉक्यूमेंट से पास कराने में, आज वो वक्त सुकड़ कर एक दिन पर आ गया। और अब इंटरनेट की दुनिया में मैं सलाम करता हूं वो तमाम लम्हात को जो आज इतनी सी देर में वी आर एबल टू सी एन आवर एंड इन अ मोमेंट। I know that I have people from around the world listening here, and that truly is, short of a miracle, a sign of the approaching hour. Let us, with hope and courage, move towards a better future in the hands of our children. ये जुमले के पीछे एक बहुत सिंपल सी बात है। अगर हमने मुस्तकबिल कुछ लोगों के हाथों में देना है और वो हमारे ही बच्चे हैं जिनके हाथ में देना है, then let us love them enough to be able to do so honorably. And with that, I thank you. We conclude. Thank you, Ji. All the best.
Thank you, Abbasa, for this wonderful talk. And I now will introduce our panel. Our panel is going to talk about, is COVID the problem? And distance learning the solution? Or is COVID the solution? And Abbas has already highlighted some of these aspects in his talk. The moderator for this session is Dr. Maliha Ahmed from Happy Home School. She has an MA in school leadership from Australian Catholic University, and she has been with the system since 24 years and is working as director of programs. And she is also part of the SPELT committee. So over to you, Dr. Maliha, for your panel discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Rafi Mudassir. Assalamu alaikum to everyone who is attending this virtual Schools That Learn conference. Mr. Abbas Husain's keynote address has given us the way forward for the panel discussion on the topic that Ms. Rafi just said. Is COVID the problem and distance learning the solution, or is COVID the solution? I begin by introducing my respected panelists, and they are Ms. Rakia Rizwan. Ms. Rakia Rizwan, maybe see where she is. She is director. Walaikum assalam. She's director at Aspire Grammar School, Bahadrabad campus, Karachi. Also, we have Ms. Arwa Khuzaima, who is an expert in early years education. She is a master trainer at the Helen O'Grady Academy and associate trainer at the Oxford University Press. Also, we have with us Ms. Amna. Also, we have Ms. Amna Chughtai, who is the regional head of training, the City School, Lahore. Thank you all for being here with us today, this morning. Walaikum assalam. I would take the lead from Mr. Abbas Husain's keynote address by saying the new normal has opened up exciting new avenues in professional development for educators around the world. School heads have had to use their creativity and resourcefulness to deal with the current crisis. Some heads have done it willingly and excitedly, while others have done it a bit reluctantly. Nevertheless, we all have come up with new ideas and strategies to teach and engage learners in online classes. In the time of this pandemic, educators have now used a combination of audios, videos, and text to reach out to their students to maintain a human touch to their online classes. This helped in creating a collaborative and interactive learning environment where students could give their immediate feedback, ask questions, and learn interestingly, which in many ways offered an improvement over the prevalent system that was the teaching and learning practice that was taking place before the pandemic. So, through this panel discussion, I would like us to discuss whether actually this COVID pandemic has been a blessing in disguise. Let me begin by asking the first panelist, Ms. Rakia Rizwan, being the principal of a school, please share your experience of not only running, but starting a school in the time of the pandemic. Over to you, Ms. Rakia.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maliha. Um, Starting a new school was very exciting in a start because I started in January, and February was a time for admission, but suddenly the COVID hit in March, and being a new school, the classes weren't started at that time. So catering the new admissions and keeping them along with me was definitely the biggest task and the biggest challenge at that moment. And suddenly on the online and everything emerges so massively that we all went into that flow. So thinking of that, how to align all those new admission students and parents. First of all, gaining the confidence with a learning partner as a parents, like Abbas Sahab said in the first point, कि बच्चा माँ बाप का सबसे पहला जो है वो उसकी जिम्मेदारी की होता है. So we're keeping this in mind, how to make the parents as a partner. I started my first LMS on Google Classroom in 8th March to 2020. But yet, like parents were not into, and we all of us has faced that what is this online, isme kya karna hai, so isko kaise karna hai. Then I conducted a one small training with the parents in a sort of small videos and how to like connect with the Google Classroom and everything. Then Ramadan came, and during the Ramadan we all have planned approximately for June classes. But being a new school, connecting all the new parents rather than asking them about the financial aspect, it is better to facilitate first. That was my first priority, to gain the confidence being a new school. And even if I was working, I would be working with a running school, मेरा पहला जो है वो vision motive यही होता, to gain the confidence of the parents. So I came up with an idea, why not to facilitate my new admission with free online classes, at least for 4 weeks, for a month. And I offered them for free online classes without paying any fee for a month. While planning and preparation, this idea suddenly struck me, why not to facilitate the public, the society, in a holistic way. So I used Facebook and Instagram, and I connected on with the different public forums where the parents are asking about some good classes for online learning facilities, and I offered them the online learning, like online classes for age group of approximately 2.5 to age group of 8. And Alhamdulillah, this idea works so well that when I started a group on Facebook, within 2 days, or one, like you can say 2 days, 3 nights, 250 parents connected within 3 days. And with the end of these classes, like we conducted classes from 15th of June to 29th of July. And those free online classes catered approximately more than 100 students on Zoom, and 400 students, 400 parents were connected with me on my LMS. And during that course of time, we conducted the online session for parents. We communicated with the parents what is the online classes, how we are going to facilitate them. We put our curriculum in front of us, and we took out all those audio and visual learning content, and we utilized them. And yes, we made the parents as a partner of learning. We like AGS designed all those activities which can involve the parents at home in a positive manner. Abbas साहब अभी ने कभी कहा कि for the fathers, like work from home was actually work for home for the fathers too. And I was very excited when from a one side fathers were facilitating a child with providing the homemade material for some activities for even for the early years. And Alhamdulillah, I catered approximately more than 400 parents on those online classes, not only from Karachi, from Lahore, Islamabad, Pindi, Peshawar, Gujranwala, Sialkot, Multan, then even from abroad, from like parents from Bahrain, from Qatar, from Saudi Arab, from Kuwait, and even from Australia were connected in our classes. And the response was massive. I thought that crying on that कि with a new school और ये सोच के परेशान होना कि अब क्या करें, तो I think the COVID came up a solution for me rather than a problem for me. Yes, it was a problem in a financial aspect, if I would say, and I think we all schools have faced that, but it came up into a solution because the trainings, the excitement, the teachers training turned into a paradigm shift. And even for the parents were connected, the students were very excited. Yes, the problem faced in some of the like frustration, ye kya hai, ye kyun hai, but uh, it was a very, very good experience. And even in August, we had a 14th August celebration virtually, again with 200 participants all around, like from all of those parents. They were connected again with me on 14th of August celebration, and the parents like were very excited. And alhamdulillah, that was a massive response. And it like it supported me, it motivated me कि मुझे हिम्मत नहीं हारनी, मुझे अभी रुकना नहीं है. And even it came out the more creative sense out of me, which even I made myself in a learned form. And it was definitely the one of the greatest experience throughout my these 20 years experience, I must say.
Thank you, Ms. Rakir Rizwan, for sharing your experience. This brings me to ask Ms. Arwa Khuzaima, with your vast experience in early years education, what do you think, Ms. Arwa, is the most needed element for nurturing young children?
Thank you, Dr. Maliha, for that question. That's a very important aspect. The fact that children learn everywhere and anywhere, and that's a universal fact. And in fact, it's the law of nature. Therefore, if schooling is education, then the closure of schools or the school buildings is certainly not curbing students' learning. Just as what Mr. Abbas Husain in his keynote address pointed out, that the grammar of schooling is completely different from the meaning of education or learning. Learning isn't about textbooks and copies at all. That brings to mind the fact that the first thing that a child learns is from babbling to actions and gestures, the language which is something we consider lifelong learning and is also known as the mother tongue. This was learned the place in the mother's lap should be, rather than the normal practice of sending children away at the tender age of 2.5 or 3 years. And at those times when the very nature of human development suggests that the child belongs right where he is in his home. The question that arises next is, how does a mother teach a child? Is she prepared enough to provide her child with the learning that needs to happen? As we all agree that early childhood is the phase in life which is very important, where where everything that is learned during this phase is like inscription on stone, and that is going to impact a child's life all through. Learning in the early years is known to be dominated by incident. Therefore, for creativity to emerge and be nurtured, the parents play an important role as the school's partners in the setting of a responsive environment. So, here is where the school's role is almost indispensable. Schools will assist in making this a rich learning experience by enabling mothers and creating a conducive environment for the naturalistic approach to set in. This approach strongly advocates the mother as the teacher, but the teacher, I reiterate, the teacher, the school, play an important role in educating the mother for her child. Since we're all already very set with the idea that children can't do without schools and teachers, let there be that intervention with the teacher and all the child's other colleagues and friends on Zoom. But since we all know that children's attention span is known for being brief, let that intervention on Zoom be no longer than 10 minutes, where the teacher might introduce a new letter. For example, the letter A. Ask the children, A for egg, ask the children to run to the kitchen and ask their mother to show them eggs. They could count how many eggs there are in the house, and then they could talk about the teacher could ask children to go and ask mommy how she prepares eggs for breakfast. The child does all this and then he comes back to the screen and shares his learning with his colleagues and his teachers. In fact, the lesson could end with a delightful scrambled egg snack. Now, what children eat, yes, we as mothers are responsible for that, and nurturing good habits is what we are always doing. So, isn't that an important aspect of child development? This is what learning is all about, expanding the child's arena for learning, increasing well supported development of personal resources, widening the range of possibilities, and allowing the experience of incidental learning to venture beyond the known. This is what has been happening over the past 9 months, where parents and teachers have experienced partnership in its truest sense in the education of a child. So let's make sure this partnership never breaks. With that, I think I have answered your question, Dr. Madiha.
Yes, you have certainly, and so aptly. Thank you, Ms. Arwa. I come to Ms. Amna Chuktai. With your experience in teacher training, how did you train your teachers to deal with the different demands of online learning and catering to the needs of the students? Yes, Ms. Amna.
Thank you, Dr. Malia. Okay, so Assalamu alaikum everyone. Yeah, teacher training and training the teachers during this online environment, the entire last 9 months time period has, and to deal with the challenges of the online learning has been a really amazing experience. Why? Because we did not stop. So 13th March was the lockdown and 14th March was our first teacher training session, a 2-hour session with my trainees. So I was conducting the Cambridge Professional Development Qualifications with the group. So a lot of experimentation, trial and error, as we all have experienced. Overnight, we all became digital trainers and digital teachers, and we were expected to receive training, receive guideline on this end and deliver it immediately to the students in the classroom. So experimentations with platforms, Zoom, Google Classroom, Google Meet, MS Teams, whatever that was available. You know, we all tried to experiment on that. And we've come a long way. So teacher training has, and we are now, you know, it's very important that we now set our priorities. The theme that we're talking about, seeking norms for the new normal. This is now the new normal. So teacher training is never going to stop. Professional development has taken a totally 360-degree turn, and we have to redirect our pathways for learning. So what can be achieved through online platform and virtual learning environment should continue, and we should actually work on that. For example, we may let rest the traditional ways of face-to-face training. So I now call that and that time before 13th March as a traditional environment, traditional learning, because we were always so trained only on face-to-face. And within this short time period, we've come a long way to make this a new normal. It's important that we learn to engage virtually, and I would, give about maybe 3 main tools that I feel have helped teachers in this time period to engage students in the online learning environment. Number one, the flipped learning. Education is no more happening in books or notebooks or in the classroom. It is now time for flipped learning. It's very, very important that teacher, all the more important, engages students through questioning, through reflection, through evaluation, by leaving out the exposition part for the students to learn on their own. There's a lot of, as Abbas said, infobesity. Let's utilize infobesity in the right manner. So, and then online games, advanced organizers that are available online, lots of applications which were always probably there and we never realized them. So we started using them, and we found it very interesting. I was experimenting one of the applications, and making a mind map online was amazing, and how later on the same mind map automatically converted itself into a PowerPoint presentation, because that was the built-in algorithm. So this has been a really good experience. Asynchronous learning, synchronous learning, nothing matters anymore. It is learning that is happening, whether do it synchronously or asynchronously. So let's all, another experience that I would like to talk about. We all, teachers have accepted, parents have accepted this element of working from home. So initially, yes, maybe we could say 2 months, 3 months, a lot of problems. There were a lot of students who probably would not attend the classes, very low attendance, but slowly, gradually now, it's almost more than 80% attendance in the online classes, because everybody is now getting used to it and nobody wants to miss out on the learning experience. So in the same manner, as we say, this training teachers on the aspect of engaging students is the challenge. So here I would talk about student agency. Why? Because students are now the real agents of learning. It has moved away, the authority, responsibility has moved away from teachers into the hands of the learners. They are the ones deciding now on what and how much to learn and how much to engage in the environment. They may be physically present, but mentally, just not there. Maybe available online, shown as present, but they may just be somewhere else. So they can, it's again in the hands of the teacher how to engage the student in the online environment. So teacher training, the role of teacher training can never be undermined. In fact, as earlier said, it has now become all the more important. And in the coming years, you'll see that the environment of learning has totally changed. It's no more face-to-face in the sense that I would wait for the training to happen. I can now attend any training, online program, MOOC, webinar, open learning at any point in time, 24/7. I never knew I would be attending webinars or training sessions or conferences at 12 a.m. till 4 a.m. So we are all open now to learning, and direct tutoring is becoming an age-old thing now. Another thing that I think for students, as to continue with your question regarding the students' engagement, digital technologies, and with that, digital literacy, helping students understand the netiquette, helping students and teachers obviously to understand the element of security, element of connectivity, constructivist classroom. That is something we all need to train our students and teachers on. So it's okay if a student does not want to have to keep a video on because of his background. Maybe because where he's sitting, he cannot, or maybe he's not able to have a virtual background. Just like right now, I do not have the virtual background because I'm keeping my own live background. So it's all open. Everything is now open. We are no more restricting learning to a classroom in the four walls. So it's now CWW. It's classroom without walls completely. So that's something we all have come a long way. And year 2020 comes to a close. A year of learning and experiences, good moments and sad lessons to learn, new horizons to view. The buzzword, the new normal, has actually set us for a new stage for us to see. A lot of trial and error has conditioned our learning. And I think we all are ready for to continue with this kind of learning. Even after 10th of January, when schools open, I'm sure the majority of parents will continue to stay connected online because teachers are available, students are available, trainers are available, learning is available once again.
Thank you, Amna. Indeed, it was very insightful. And as I think we have all come to an agreement that online learning is not an option anymore, it's a necessity. For now, we come to the end of our very interesting discussion. It can go on for longer, but because of the time constraint, let's move on to our next part of the panel discussion, which is watching videos of our sponsors and also a visual journey, which is going to be led by Mr. Abbas Husain. During this time, I would request all the attendees to write their questions in the chat box, and we will be addressing your questions just after watching the videos. So be ready with your questions, and our panelists and the keynote speaker will answer them. Over to Ms. Farheen.
All right, so we are very thankful to Zee International School for sponsoring the conference. Here is their video of their school. Please have a look.
Such way that burned the lamp of glittering clay. The trip to brightness is about to start. Eternally high, the series rise, being wisdom of wise, where hope never dies.
Thank you so much, Zee International, once again. Okay, here is a video of Happy Home School. Okay, Happy Home School is one of our learning partners.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Malia Ahmed and I'm Director Programs at the Happy Home School System. I have been in the field of education since the last 25 years. In these troubled times, I feel that a school leader should be a transformational one who believes in change, innovation, and student engagement and is ready to adapt to any situation that comes their way. In March 2020, when the COVID pandemic hit us, we shifted from face-to-face schooling to an online platform. We at the HHS strongly believe in the holistic development of our students. and therefore conduct a series of co-curricular competition and events throughout the year. So soon after, we began our online co-curricular program. अपने मकसद, तालीम और तरबियत को अहम जानते हुए हमने अपनी
कौन लेगा ये? और अंडा पूरी आस्तीनों पे सब जगह ना लसड़े
तेल लगा के आंटी का जो पट्टा है पे और उस पे से रहना सब बता मालबिन का भैया तो मैं कौन है
हटाओ हाथ
अम्मा आपका माइक खुला है सारी आवाज जा रही होंगी
so that more students can participate. I would stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Happy Home School and Dr. Malia. Okay, now we have Falcon House School. They are also one of our leading partners. Let me share their video.
Engages students in lessons and exchange their thinking skills.
Curriculum is designed by putting in the best found stories, poems that hit the intellect, and novels which are rational in themes. In this way, we, to a considerable extent, help the students to overcome the limitations that they face in mastering English language.
Our curriculum is also integrated with scientific knowledge as it helps students improve their problem solving and critical thinking skills.
Outside the standard framework, we provide opportunities for students to learn new skills and ignite new passion through extracurricular activities, be it elocution, declamation, art competition, sports, and many more.
The COVID-19 pandemic is having a real effect on all of us. Therefore, we strive for excellence by not only preparing students for learning beyond school academics, but also helping them to be self-directed, realistic, and responsible decision maker for any unprecedented situation of ever-changing world. In the light of current circumstances, we are also aiming to nurture and develop every learner to prepare them to be self-sufficient for future challenges.
Thank you so much, Falcon High School. You may proceed now.
Thank you so much, Fareen, for sharing the sponsors' videos. I would request now Abbas Husain Sahab to proceed with the program, where he'll be sharing a video related to the theme, and we will be discussing it in between. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. The way we have structured this program is that all the 2-hour sessions will follow a particular pattern. Each, we hope, and give or take 5 minutes, given technologies and its affordances, we hope that each first half hour will be the keynote address. The second half hour will be the panel discussion. The third half hour will be listening to a video of an educational intent and of great impact, exploring it, opening it up to our thinking and our discussion. And the fourth part will be questions and answers from the audience, in which we will be responding to things that you write on the chat, and in which we will take things that have arisen out of the conversation that people are having with us, sending us through WhatsApp messages, through the chat box. Now, that is the overall structure of all 3 sessions that we'll be doing of 2 hours each. So we have now come upon the third chunk of today, which is watching and exploring a video of an educational import. So let us see. It is my pleasant duty to share with you Nadeem Mukarrem. Now, it is possible we have never heard of him. I at least had never heard of him before. He is the Minister of Education of Indonesia. And at the age of 35, one of the youngest, well, I should say the youngest Minister of Education in the Muslim world. I did try to check out on some of the other countries how old the education ministers were, but certainly in the Muslim world, he's the youngest. And here is a man of integrity and vision. And we will listen to 2 clips from a long conversation that he had with scholars there was a whole seminar there, and I heard it live, and later on request, we were able to get a recording of that conversation. From there, we will hear 2 short clips. So the first one we have is heads as leaders. Fareen, is that ready? Okay. So Ayyaji, heads as leaders. Our issue of school leadership, our issue of fearless leadership, our issue of conference of the decade and looking at the year 2030, our issue of what can we do? What can? Here is somebody, not from the West. He's educated in the West, like all of us, but someone with a vision for his own country, and I believe extremely applicable to educational issues worldwide, certainly in the Muslim world. So over to Fareen. Let us hear the first one. Ji.
I see technology really helping is, don't forget that schools are institutions. They are institutions with bureaucracies, with regulations, with a huge amount of financial regulatory overhead that needs to happen because they're administered by the state. You would not believe the amount of time that teachers and principals spend managing the administrative requirements of the bureaucracy versus actually improving learning outcomes in their school. So creating tools, technology tools that automate these administrative requirements and can take a huge amount of burden from teachers and principals away from that task, and therefore they can dedicate it to the students, will transform the amount of time that teachers and principals spend.
Now, my purpose in sharing with you this clip is to take a recognition of how much we've just heard the minister make some extremely important points, that so much bureaucratic effort, paperwork and other things takes time away from the really important work of teaching and learning. Given that teaching and learning are the central human response of what shall we say, the central human response to our nobility and to our humanity. So here is Nadeem Saab pointing out that there is a serious need for us to reconsider whether so much of the paperwork we do, is it really essential? What purpose does it serve? Does the paper go from one file to another file, never to be seen again? Are we making teachers produce documents which are paperwork? I mean, you know, there's only paper and no work, somebody quipped. So this was a first theme. Let us hear Dr. Nadeem Makarim again. And this time he's focusing on attracting teachers to teaching. Attracting teachers to teaching. Right, Ayuji. Farinji, all yours.
Getting those people, those real that you can do, that we can all do, to think about getting those people, those really terrific young people to choose teaching as their profession. What do you think about that?
Well, that is an easier question to answer.
Okay.
Because we know what makes teaching attractive for talented people. We know this in the world. We learned this from OECD, from the World Bank, and all their research that they've done. Basically, talented people are attracted to the same things. They are attracted to high-purpose jobs, of which teaching actually is the easiest one to justify.
The highest.
Yeah, very high.
Except maybe being a mom or dad. Yeah. But that's not a job.
Yes. Number one is that. No. Number two, professional autonomy. What does that mean? Does the government, for example, lawyers, very high professional thing, does the government go and set how lawyers are taught, what leveling, how do their careers get promoted, et cetera? No. Lawyers themselves, they have guilds.
You're right.
They have these own professional autonomy to determine who of them deserve to be promoted, et cetera. Like, so professional autonomy is a very important aspect of this. And third, of course, can't sacrifice a minimum economic need. After a certain point, money doesn't matter anymore. We've seen this happen all the time. Money can be destructive in educational systems if it's thrown as a performance incentive, like getting a high test score for kids, you get money. It can be really, really destructive. But you need to have a certain required level of welfare whereby those teachers are not worried about how they're gonna, fund their kid's school, or if their kid gets sick, they can go. So there is a minimum level of welfare that is required. And then finally, what needs to happen is the growth and development. Talented people are always thirsty for growth. If they do not feel that their professional community or the government or whoever is hiring them are providing them with opportunities to learn and advance, it's not just the freedom, don't forget, it's not just the freedom and autonomy, it's also options, access to, am I learning a cutting edge new way of teaching multiplication? Do I get to learn from a master teacher from Jakarta that's super awesome at describing history? Those access points are what make the profession more exciting. And that's the only way to get the smartest people to look at teaching as an attraction.
9 UK 842 42
Thank you, Ji. Right. As you can see, Nadeem Makarim has put his finger on the spot. I believe that he has hinted at some extremely important variables that heads need to look after. And there are witty and funny ways of talking about this. Ahead, it is known because it happened in my presence. We were talking about the training of teachers, and he said, "Nahi Abbas sahab, nahi, koi fayda nahi. What is the use of taking people, training them, making them better, and them leaving? And I said, consider this. What is the use of taking people, not making them better, and they stay? That's all. I mean, that's all. So if you think that your training, the people go for better prospects, you have two choices. Number one, why the heck are they going for 1,000 rupees more? So match them, give it to them. The point is that beyond a particular point, wealth doesn't work. True, Nadeem is absolutely right. But if you make a teacher worry about his child's own education, and you make him worry about a day when he is not well, and say, यार मैं teaching को जरूर रखता, लेकिन मेरा बच्चा बीमार हो तो मैं दोस्त के पास कर्जा लेने नहीं जाना चाहता. Now, when you have that kind of level, we know that we are talking about something else. Friends, principals need to create a mark on the cap, a feather in the cap, that they attract the best and the smartest people, happy in the thought that if they leave, they have become better as a fact of being with them. Yani, हमारे एक corporate trainer हैं कामरान रिजवी, बहुत जबरदस्त बात कहते हैं. Do you know the only CSR, corporate social responsibility? Do you know the only CSR that is? And I know many people believe corporate social responsibility is giving scholarships to people, running a school, giving, it is. He says corporate social responsibility for every organization, every employer, every person is simply this, that the person leaves them better than when that person came in. That's it. I have given to Pakistan a person better than when he entered my organization. That's all. Yani, kya zabardast baat hai कि my duty to Pakistan is not all the other fancy stuff. It is extremely simple, that the people who came in my organization left me better than when they came in. And when I take this, their growth, their autonomy, their agency, when I look after these things, Nadeem Saab has put it extremely well. You do this and the best and the brightest will flock to your schools and take jobs in teaching. The pandemic has opened up many other possibilities. And just one last thought before we turn full time. Oh, we have a lot of time for questions and answers. And my panelists, I'm extremely grateful. Are you all here? Arwa, Amina Chuktai, and Rakia?
Yes, they are very much here.
Yes, I see.
Yeah, very much here.
Maliha? Right, wonderful. So one of the extremely kind of powerful, nuance that is connected to our work is precisely many teachers are looking after intellectual growth. This whole point of agency, this whole point of, will I be in connection with the best and the brightest of materials, websites, PDF books, thinking? If your school becomes known for attracting people, I assure you that you've got it made. You should be proud of the fact that people want to join you. And if they do leave for lots of other reasons, nobody leaves for, there are lots of personal variables, and don't take any person who moves jobs personally. It is not you. Lots of other variables. If you decide this, that the best and the brightest are attracted to your school, you already have achieved a remarkable point. Schools that learn, our slogan is connected to this. Children learn. Do we have a school where everyone learns? Everyone. All the teachers, including the principal. Hello. Do we have a school where the head also learns? Where the masi, the ayah, the chokidar, where everyone learns? When you have that clarity, you have a school that is moving, a wheel that is turning. Right. Otherwise, to use Ken Robinson, The Death Valley of Schools, the schools kill creativity. Yeah. That whole dialogue. John Taylor Gatto, who tells us about the horrors of weapons of mass instruction and things like that. Exactly, all the negativities that go with it. I now pause. Now you have understood what we plan to do. In each session, there will be a sequence, a keynote address, a panel discussion, a video exploration from a living thinker. ये याद रहे, I know those who have passed are also good. लेकिन लेकिन कभी इनको भी सुनी ले. I joke about this कि मेरे वतन में अजीम होने के लिए पहले टै होना पड़ता है. So there are great people around living as well. We will be doing that. And friends, as an announcement for tomorrow, एक teaser सा दे दूं of the two people who have had global impact on education and educational thinking are Andrew Hargreaves and Michael Fullan. I've had the honor of learning from both of them directly in Toronto, in United States, in Boston, and in Manchester, etc. But never mind. And I have the honor and privilege of sharing with you Dr. Andrew Hargreaves' keynote address, specially recorded for schools that learn, as a gift and as a response to our request that he talk to us. And in that sense, I think it is an honor and a privilege to listen to Dr. Andrew Hargreaves' powerful thinking, global impact on the present situation and the future that is ahead of us. So this is why this conference is, of all you do, the conference of the decade. तुमने जो चाहो सुन लो, ये आखिरी अय्याम में you are listening to something which is the best. I now pause here and we turn to questions and answers. So I turn to Dr. Maliha and Farheen to, between them, take a look at what we have received in the chat and respond from there. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Abbas Husain, for a very interesting exploration of a video journey. And now we come to the question and answer session. Begin by noting down, as I had noted down a few questions that were popping up, and repeatedly people are asking about the role of parents in the online learning. So would any of the panelists want to, Ms. Rakia, would you want to answer that question? And Amna, of course, you would also like to share your views. Yes. The role of parents.
Role of the parents. Role of the parents in the start was not that much conducive enough. It was quite struggling and challenging for all the schools. As I am a researcher as well, so I always not go only with my situation. I always talk to the other people, other heads, other school people, like owners as well, what they are facing. So what I think the first thing we all did were to bring the confidence. And yes, when I was reading the chat, one of the participants wrote that through these online classes, we actually took teaching to our homes, where actually the mothers, the parents are also learning along with their child. And they also saw how the teachers are actually putting efforts, how the schools are putting efforts. Some of the schools have conducted classes from their own school premises. Some of the teachers have conducted classes from their home. So both them have like put on a lot of effort. Like even those teachers who conducted classes from home, a lot of resources they made it, and they took it from school, and school facilitated them through the resources. So I think from the last many years, that complaint from the parents कि स्कूल क्या कर रहा है, टीचर्स क्या कर रहे हैं, वो अब कम हो गया है बहुत हद तक. I think almost बिल्कुल खत्म हो गया. Now parent understands कि how like teachers are teaching, how difficult it is, how like a full of like a lot of efforts, बहुत आजमा काम है करना. हम कह देते कि कोई भी फ्रेश जो गर्ल्स जो होती हैं वो अमूमन कहती हैं कि ऑलराइट फ्री है टीचिंग कर लेते हैं. But let me just say, and I think we all agree with that, teaching and like developing learning is definitely not an easy thing. It requires lots of efforts, lots of sacrifice and patience. But yes,
Right.
now after like
Right. Thank
you
you,
can say months.
Rakia. Right. Let me turn to Amina. Amina Choktai, please go on.
Yeah. Thank you. So yes, I agree with Rakia that parents have come a long way. Initially, it was a big challenge, and parents would sit throughout the lesson, whether it was a 35 minutes lesson or a 70-minute lesson, they would sit through the sessions to see what the teachers were doing. So kind of making a very critical, negatively critical eye and observing the teacher did this or teacher did that. From that phase to now, where they are ready to participate in the learning process. They are even ready to engage in different activities that we have planned for our parents and students alike to work on before coming to class. So parents have also realized that yes, teaching is not an easy thing. It was very convenient to work on the blame game thing in the past, where teacher is not doing anything. Aapke teacher ne kya kiya? Your teacher ne copies nahi check ki. It's no more like that. They're not complaining anymore like that, because now they know if they do not submit an assignment on time, teacher is going to check them. Okay, where is the assignment? So this has really put the ball into their court by making them responsible for the learning process of their own child. And that's when the realization went in. It really, they had it saying, it synced into it. They realized that yes, we have a role to play. So you can say that all that we always read in books, the golden triangle of teacher, student, and parent, it's actually now practically being seen. So the school partnership is now really into practice. I agree with the fact, because there's been a question over here also, that how to train the parents. That is, a lot of them have come a long way, and they will continue to. Some percentage, small percentage of parents are still stuck up into their mindset, but it's okay. They will ultimately be now in the next year, they will be coming forward, and they will realize that learning is not just the responsibility of the school, but an equal responsibility of home also.
Certainly, Basamna. And that brings me to ask Ms. Arwa, if Ms. Arwa Khuzaima, could you unmute yourself, please? Thank you. You need to unmute. Yes, please.
Yes.
Please go on.
Thank you, Dr. Maliha. Talking about the parents and school partnership, what I would like to say here is key point here is communication. Because it's a partnership, and we talked about children having very limited time, spending very limited time online, but that is only for children. Parents are going to spend a lot of time communicating with the teacher. So there's going to be something that's going to be done pre-classes. So whatever the teacher wants to teach during the week, to make sure that the constructivist environment is ready for the child, the teacher will make sure that she preempts the parents regarding what she plans to teach during the week. Then during the week also, the teacher and the parent will make sure that they're in strong communication. Everything that needs to be available for the child, everything that needs to be communicated, or the way things have been taught, all of this has to be communicated with the parents at all times, to make sure that there is no gap between what the teacher is saying to the child and what the parents are saying to the child. So I think that we talked about little children not spending too much time on Zoom, but parents will have to spend a lot of time with the school to educate their children.
I would like to add here to the talk that all our three panelists just shared. There was this comment by Amira Mehboob asking that how to limit too much involvement of parents. I feel that we have to set boundaries as school principals, as school leaders, boundaries for the parents to follow rules to follow during online classrooms, because there were cases where teachers were uncomfortable, there were cases where children were uncomfortable to be online. So an understanding on the part of the parents and understanding on the parts of the teachers and heads of schools that this online learning has actually encroached upon the privacy of many of us. And some of us are not comfortable to be on camera. So some boundaries have to be shared with the parents. And again, another thing where we can educate parents is how can they facilitate the school in the learning of their child. So perhaps some activities can be shared by the school principals and teachers where the students are learning certain skills or practicing where they require support with the help of the parents. So this is what I did actually. I, as a parent, requested the head and shared with the teachers the other dimensions that my child was learning during these online classes or limited access to learning when there was no online classes also. So they were growing in other aspects. They were growing in community service. They were perhaps growing in values as they were interacting more with family. So parents can share those examples and the schools can build on those skills that the children have learned at home within their families. My son, for example, learned gardening and he was learning making Minecraft games. So that is what I shared with the school. Those were the things where the school could actually build on activities and also find out what other students were doing at home. So some of them learned cooking, some of them learned how to, for the teenagers, they learned how to make their snacks and get involved, and they were helping the mothers in the kitchen. They were helping with other household chores. So learning did not stop, they were learning. So as the schools, as leaders of schools, we need to know how our students were growing while being at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rafia. Also, I think we, Mr. Abbas Husain, how can we build this trust deficit that is between the parents? Could you please unmute yourself, sir?
I need to unmute. Yeah. I think this is one of the most profound issues in our society, that we have as a culture an extremely low trust level amongst parents and teachers. And I find this, it is a reality and I regret it, but I believe it needs to be bridged, and the pandemic is as good a time as any to do so. Two thoughts that emerged from the previous conversation of Rakia's and Amina Chuktai's comments. I will just pick up on that and turn to your question. This thing about explaining to parents about who want only grades and who want only notebooks and who want only, you know, the traditional, the whole point we made earlier on in my own keynote. I think that we ourselves need to equip ourselves with some very powerful concepts. Here is one very powerful concept. And I would request all the people who are here, we have your email addresses, those who have filled in the Google forms and things like that, because this conversation cannot just end here. It won't. We will continue. Pura saal pada hai bhai. 2021, it is coming. Okay. The thing is, there is a very powerful concept called solid modernity. Solid modernity. That was most of the 20th century and the early decade of the 21st. The early decade, I make a point there because that is when it started fizzling up. And we are now in liquid modernity. Liquid modernity. It's a very powerful concept. Just take one word for it. And if you write to me on an email, I will zap you an article that I have written explaining this thing, a page and a half. वो एक आप लोगों को उसमें मैं फाइल में डाल दूंगा, आप सबको मिल जाएगा. The point here is simply that we, Abbas Husain, I and my generation, I mean, all of you are young women, all 19, kya baat karni? And you know, the purana admi. Anyway, so I received an education in the 60s, yeah, long time ago. I was in university in the 70s, 80s, all that time. I was totally acclimatized to solid modernity. For me, the solidity of experience the largeness of things, the bigness of buildings, high, huge, monumental stuff was what impressed me, was what impacted. Today, all that has turned electronic. Once upon a time, things were mechanical and physical, steel. Now they are a dance of electrons. We are able to see each other across time and space in a way that was almost sound miraculous at any other time. Explain this as little as 10 years ago, and none of us could have predicted it. I'm not talking about the COVID. I'm talking about what we are doing just now on Zoom. Liquid and solid modernity. What perhaps we need to explain to parents is with clarity and consistency. We need to say to them, please understand that the world has changed eternally and forever. We won't get that world back. Wo purana daur guzar gaya, khalas, it's gone forever. So give them some very, very homely examples. I'll just give two. One, nobody say to the parent, you don't go to the doctor and say, please treat me the same way you treated my grandfather. You don't. You want the latest possible medical technique, non-intrusive ways of removing your pancreas. Okay, I think that's the only thing that they take out. Spleen has to remain there. And I want you to do this in a lithotripsy. I want you to do this. We want the latest medical thing. Why is that? Because it is health. Okay. In the same exact way, look at the food we have. The enormous varieties available from our typical supermarket. The incredible one. Now we say to them, friends, if in those things you have no trouble accepting, how is it that in teaching you still want the 1340 lecture method? How is it that in teaching you still want the copy to be filled and the margin to be drawn and the date to be written? When the child is going to be on his smartphone and write messages and is doing chatting far better and faster than you ever can or will understand. When will this happen? I know of a school teacher who taught children to use the Facebook in the class to make Facebook pages of the Mughal emperors. It was fantastic. So the children found out a picture of Jahangir and they made that his profile. And then they found out when he got married and they put in a heart next to Noor Jahan getting married. They did exactly what you would want them to do. It is only our own solid modernity thinking that stops us from using the tools of liquid modernity to teach well. Now, this is our window. This is our opportunity to reach out to heads and give them these visions of what is possible. One is this. Ask them something else. Tell them, do you remember once upon a time there was a television set in the house in the corner in the drawing room? Do you remember? You used to close it. Do you remember? Farman-e-Ilahi used to come and the whole city used to watch Waris. Remember? पूरे शहर कराची के लोग गायब हैं, भाई कहाँ हैं सब लोग वारिस देख रहे हैं. Okay. Today, it is not possible for 5 members of the same family to watch the same program. No chance. No chance. Now, you tell them, okay, Baba, if you can accept all that, why can't you accept that in teaching and learning? So, my major question, this thing about trust deficit, yes, I believe it is extremely sad that parents and teachers have hostility and an animosity against each other, which is not good. We need to reach out our hand in friendship to them, and teachers need to say to them, let us both serve your child. आइए हम दोनों मिलके आपके बच्चे की खिदमत करें. तो आइए मुझे बताइए मैं क्या करूं ताकि आपके बच्चे की खिदमत हो, और आप बताइए मैं आपको बताता हूं कि आप क्या करें ताकि आप मेरे काम को निगेट ना करें. You don't cross my stuff, but you support my work. As Arwa brilliantly pointed out, a whole series of things are possible when we make parents as partners rather than when we take them as clients or customers. It just changes the whole thing. So these are, I took a little longer, but it is a philosophical point and I wanted that clear. Right. G. Thank you, Dr. Malia. I want to
there is another question written by Ms. Tahira Khan, and she's wanting the experts to comment on the comparison between face-to-face and online learning, if it's possible. Ms. Amina Chuktai, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah. Okay, so, well, you cannot undermine the importance or impact of face-to-face learning. Neither can we now, compare the efforts being made for the online learning. It is a general opinion and general experience also that it's easy to connect, the physical information and the physicality of the environment matters, because especially with young learners, students, even adults, you can easily see how they are interacting, and lots of activities that can be done in a face-to-face environment may not be possible in an online environment. Having said that, we still cannot say that online learning, is not effective. Why? Because it's just that there are a lot of variety, there's a big variety of online activities that can be done and experimented and engaged. So I would repeat what I said regarding student agency, since learning is now in the hands of students. So it is a challenge for the teachers to design an engaging lesson. So she is trained on designing an engaging lesson whereby she is incorporating the channels, breakout rooms, group activities, and games like Kahoot or Edpuzzle. These applications can easily be used. So naturally, the online learning will take place. So with my experience of all these months in the last, giving training to teachers on different programs, it's only the first stage, the first day or the second day where they feel, oh, what am I doing? Because my mic is off, my video is off, and I do not see what my student is sitting there or not. The challenge is there. But if I, as a teacher, know my student and how am I going to engage her through activity, everybody will participate. So again, the onus lies in the hand of the teacher once again. The challenge is there, but again, the challenge of changing the lesson plan, the format of the lesson plan, format of the teaching strategies, that is really going to engage the student in the learning process. Utilize students as class reps, utilize students as monitors in different groups, and they can become the real leaders of learning within the channels. So as a teacher, if I'm conducting a session in Microsoft Teams or Zoom, I have this as an owner of the team, I can easily go into the breakout room and engage and ask my students to have a video lesson, video call within the lesson that is being conducted into the main room. So I can participate in that and see who is performing and who is participating and who is not. So the training of the teacher again comes in that aspect.
Thank you, Ms. Amna. Ms. Rakia, would you like to answer this question by Brigies? Ms. Brigies is asking, checking online, especially analytical answers, is very difficult. Is there any solution to that? Checking of papers and...
For analytical... Yes. Checking online is definitely one of the challenge many schools faced because of the different reasons. Number one was related to the authenticity of conducting the paper, especially for the higher classes, because for the lower classes, the different aspects. Analytical answers checking and conducting, I think it's almost very difficult on online. Yes, we have different aspects. What we did is that we divided into different questions and we divided the students into different questions. For example, like if you remember, we used to make paper A and paper B. Like paper A ka ek question hai, so that student is going to complete that question in front of the camera, in front of all the students, and then that question will be directly on the camera, rather than hum is cheez ka wait kare to putting up the picture on the LMS. My vision for that was that I'm not overflow my students with the content. I want them to attract. This is something new for them, rather than we are assessing them thoroughly. Because I think this was not a good time to assess them in that way, rather than to facilitate them, to help them, to motivate them more. ना कि हम इस वक्त उनको एग्जाम्स और असेसमेंट में डाल. Yes, the assignments were like received.
Just a moment. Dr. Maliha, can I just make a remark here?
Certainly, sir.
Yes, Rakia has kind of, navigated the answer in a very powerful and a very safe way, because you need to go more radical. Research now shows that up to grade 8, much of the marking we do doesn't have anything to do with learning. It has to do with control. Now, I believe that the pandemic has taught us, let us have less control and more influence. That's a very different dynamic altogether. I don't want to control what the child does, but I want to influence the child to doing the nobler thing, the wonderful thing. This whole idea, कि वो बच्चे cheating कर लेंगे, what does that mean? It means we have already decided that they are criminals. We have already decided कि ये तो बदमाश बच्चे हैं, इन्होंने जरूर चोरी करनी. Hello, एक minute. Why would you do this? Why would you bother? The whole way in which the examination format or testing or writing or whatever can be done. First, please understand एक उसूली बात जो कि मैं अपने workshops में बताता हूँ. Of course, that will be a totally different workshop, so you'll have to call me again in another day in the future. The thing is, unworthy writing need not be checked by the teacher. Unworthy writing need not be checked by the teacher, but it can be read by peers. Now, online has made it so easy for the child to put up his own writing and others to read it, see it, mark the spelling mistakes, mark the sentences, mark all sorts of stuff. And then for the teacher to see it finally, when it has been ironed out and the wrinkles are all taken, which means the teacher's time goes on only what is relevant marking and not wasting time on the kinds of traditional hocus pocus we did. Haven't you noticed all these years, zara dil pe haath rakh ke dekhein, all these years, you have been doing marking children from grade 4 to grade 5 to grade 6. कसम ले जो किसी बच्चे की अंग्रेजी बेहतर हुई आपकी मार्किंग की वजह से. No, reading did, better reading, good input did, but your marking of spellings and grammar did not. The weak child in class 4 remained the weak child in class 5, remained the weak child in class 6. So let us zara sa isko open up करें and open up some more possibilities and get this khapt of control out of our heads and turn to influence in saying, but beta, if you give me your own writing, my opinion has a value. If you give me some copy-pasted stuff, who loses? I don't lose, you lose. When we get this message of value across, we've got quality writing. Right?
So,
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abbas Husain. Ms. Arwa, would you like to comment on the fact that one question by Ms. Bushra Hassan is that there is over-involvement by parents? Sometimes they want to do the child's work themselves. So how can we curtail that?
There's no such thing.
Yes, Ms. Arva, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Maliha.
Yes.
That's a very interesting question. Considering we're talking about the parents being equal or more partners in early years, I won't call it over-involvement. I don't know what we would call over-involvement. Doing the work of the child, if it is contributing to the child's learning, then I would consider that that's the parent's job. If you're talking about copy work and textbooks, we already said
Yes,
that has nothing to do with the learning of the child. That is not a mark of learning at all. So let us not worry about that. What difference can we see in the child is what matters. So if whatever the parent's involvement is and it's helping the child be a better child, I don't see, I won't call it overindulgence at all.
Okay, thank that. Yes, that's a very interesting perspective. Miss Rakya, would you like to comment on the netiquettes that parents and students should know, or is something that we need to address that as well? The netiquettes. Miss Amina, would you like to comment on that? Yes, Rakya. Would you please unmute yourself?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Uh, uh, this different way. I did not go, but I'm going to share my own experience.
Right.
I did not go first with the circular. I did not provide them in a written form, a set of rules. To them in a one-on-one, like we are on Zoom. I just developed some small videos and I talked to them in a very different way. I connected my mothers, my parents along with me in such a in their own comfort zone, so that they will easily connect with me and they will accept that this is something new, which is very exciting and which is something good even for them. It's not a burden.
Certainly.
So yes, were being addressed in different way, like in a step by step, how to arrange the gadget, how to communicate with us with the problems, how they are going to be along with their child, what this security and the privacy we are going to provide, not only to parents but also to our teachers as well. For example, when I was conducting free classes, after recording, I refused because all of the parents can see mothers are sitting, the teachers are sitting. So there are being provided to them.
Certainly.
And, communicate rather than in a written form.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Rakya, because I think we can go on and on about this very interesting panel discussion. But because of the time constraint, I want to conclude by saying that listening to all the panelists, I would conclude that this pandemic has taught us a number of lessons, especially that along with IT skills, students must possess skills of problem solving, critical thinking, and most importantly, adaptability to survive a crisis. So with that, we come to the end of our session. And I would remind, I thank all the panelists, the keynote speaker. Thank you, Mr. Abbas Husain, for your very informative talk. And I thank all the attendees for joining us for this session. I would remind you all to join back at 2 p.m. for another interesting panel discussion and a keynote address by Arthi Moore on compassionate leadership. So thank you all for being with us for this very interesting Schools That Learn conference. Happy learning. Thank you, Ms. Rafia. Thank you, Mr. Pastor.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We would also like to thank our sponsors who have powered this conference. And you watch their videos, and we will just share You can all see all the sponsors on our backdrops: Viper Technologies and Advon Robotics, Z International, Happy Home School, Happy Palace School. So thank you everyone. Thanks to all the sponsors, the panelists, the keynote speaker Abbas Saab, and the moderator Malia Ahmed. And see you at 2 p.m. now.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.